Recently I received this request from a viewer. Do you have a video for a 4-wire pressure switch? I'm a little puzzled with Honda's wiring for Mitchell 1. I don't understand if the PCM sends hot or ground. Now you know air conditioning pressure switches are commonly just 3 wires. So when we're faced with a 4-wire switch, it could be puzzling. So I took a look at the diagram and I could see where there might be some confusion. First, it's a 2-page diagram, and sometimes tracing all of those lines can be a little confusing. So I put together this video that will hopefully clear up some of that confusion. So we're working on a 2003 Honda Odyssey, and we're focusing on the air conditioning 4-wire pressure switch. Now when you go to the service manual, this is what it says, how the air conditioning compressor circuit works, and you'll notice they talk about the AC pressure switch. Well, in there it says when you push the AC button on with the ignition switch on and the heater switch not in the off position, the control panel will ground the AC on input of the PCM through the AC pressure switch. Now that's a lot of words, and sometimes we get lost in the words. So let's interpret that through the electrical diagram. Now when you go to the electrical diagram, you'll see that it's actually a 2-page diagram. Now in real life I would actually print both of these diagrams out and then move them together. So I'm going to do that here. Now first let's look at a few key items in these diagrams. Now at the top you're going to see that there are relay coils and there are motors. Now whenever relay coils and motors, when they are good, they have continuity. So whatever comes to them will pass right through them. And ground comes to them, so ground passes right through them. Now these are loads and they have ground, so when they get power they will operate. So now we are ready to look specifically at the 4-wire pressure sensor. Here's your diagram and you can see the AC pressure switch on the right. There's also a climate control. But let's focus on the AC pressure switch itself. Now you're going to see it's a 4-wire sensor. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4 pins. So it is really 2 switches. If you look inside, there's one switch and there's the other switch. Now the top switch is pin number 3 to pin number 2. And the bottom switch, it has continuity at rest, but it opens the circuit if the pressure is high or low. Now pins number 3 and 1 are spliced together, and it is a blue-red wire. Pins number 2 and 4 are independent of each other. Now here it is when I add the color, or ground. Again, it is 4 wires, or 2 switches. Now this switch here is normally closed and provides continuity, as long as the pressure is not high or low. If the pressure is high, this switch opens and stops the path of ground to the clutch. And if the pressure is low, the switch opens and stops the path to the clutch. So what does this switch do? Well, it is a switch, so it provides switched ground. And it provides that switch ground to these 2 relays, the radiator fan and the condenser fan relay. We got a little bit more to look at. Let's focus on this up here. Now this are our fuses and our power supply, and you see on the left fuse 59 is hot at all times, and fuse 56 is hot at all times. Notice this splice. This is not a splice, it is wires crossing. So power does not travel like this at this point. Instead, it simply stops at the open switch. Now power comes to this splice, and it comes from fuse number 3. Now it would travel like this. Of course it goes to some other places, but I'm actually just showing where it goes into these 2 relays. Now next, I want you to notice these 2 components. They look very similar to each other, don't they? Well, let's take a closer look. Now this one on the right is 2 switches, and the one on the left is 1 switch and 1 coil. As you begin to study that a little bit, you can see the difference. Sometimes we'll just glance at something and don't really realize that they're different. So the one on the left, the energized coil closes the switch. So it is an electrical switch. What about the one on the right? Now this switch is not electrical, it is mechanical. It is a pressure switch, so pressure closes it. A certain amount of pressure closes that switch. High or low pressure does not open the switch, it opens the circuit. Think about that for a second. High or low pressure does not open the switch, it opens the circuit. Now whenever I start looking at a diagram, I always start by trying to find where it is hot at all times. And you'll see up here on fuse number 59, that is hot at all times and it stops at an open. The next fuse is the same way. And there's two switches over here, or fuses over here, and they are both hot at all times. Now I always try and find the hot at all times first, because if something is not working right, sometimes it's just simply a fuse. So here's our power fuses. And then next we try and find the ground at all times. Here's our hot. Now the ground is going to be a few of them. Here's the first ground. Now notice that is the AC compressor clutch, and it is grounded by being screwed down to the block. Now here's another ground that comes up, and this one's going to travel a little bit. So let's just watch it travel. There's a few slices and a few components in it. Now as you take a look at this, I know some of you think that this up here is a mistake, don't you? Yes, it is a fuse, so it should be power. But not until the key is turned on, because that is key on power. Now all of these wires and devices have continuity, and continuity means that whatever comes to it passes right through it. Ground comes to it, so ground is going to pass right through it. When the key is turned on, they will all change to switched power and will be colored orange. And we're going to turn the key on soon, but first let's find the other grounds. There's one right here, a simple switch. A couple more that are pretty basic. And finally the last one down here. So this is how power and ground set at rest. In other words, with the key off. When we turn the key on, things are going to happen. And it all starts by requesting that the AC be turned on, and we do that with the AC control panel that is identified down here. Now that's the panel, or that's what you see, but behind that panel you're actually going to see the climate control unit. Now this control unit needs to turn on the AC compressor clutch, and that AC compressor with the clutch is bolted to the engine, and that's how it gets its ground, and power is going to come from fuse number 3. So since the relay control side has power, it needs control ground. Now remember these words, how the AC compressor circuit works? Well, when you push the AC button on with the ignition switch on and the heater fan switch not in the off position, the control panel will ground the AC on input of the PCM through the AC pressure switch. So let's take a look at that. When you push the button for the AC, you are requesting that the PCM turn the compressor on. Now here's the PCM, and that request is an AC on input to the PCM. And so the output is sent from the climate control unit when you push the button for AC. Now let's trace the path of that request. So it comes from the climate control unit and it travels over to the AC pressure switch. Now this is switched ground, and it goes to the PCM as an AC on input. Now again, as we listen here, the PCM then grounds the coil to the AC compressor clutch relay, and this energizes the coil, which closes the relay contacts, provides voltage through fuse 59 to the compressor clutch. And of course the clutch then engages and turns the compressor on. So let's follow that. So the PCM grounds the clutch coil, power comes through the relay, and the compressor clutch turns on. So the Honda air conditioning 4-wire pressure switch is simply just 2 switches built into one device.